Welcome to Dax Machina, with your hosts, Naomi Finn, Steve Wildman Monrotis, and D.A. Roberts. Join us as we explore writing, books, authors, and all things horror. We will delve into the sightings, reports, encounters, and tales of monsters. We will also explore the writings of D.A. Roberts along with others in the horror genre. We will investigate the possibilities that monsters may not be safely locked away in the pages of books. They might just walk among us even now. Grab some popcorn and lock the doors. It's going to be a creepy journey. Welcome to Dax Machina.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us again on Dax Machina, the Saturday edition. We're happy to have you folks. I know a lot of us are having some pretty nasty weather, so I hope you guys are staying safe and staying warm. And joining me tonight is my buddy Steve Wildman Monrotis and Carrie Pocket Doc Davis. Gentlemen, Doc, how the hell are you?
Wyatt, I am rolling.
Steve, how you doing, brother?
Oh, hanging in there, trying to do my best to stay warm in the snowpocalypse over here.
Snowmageddon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the snow that we got, we pretty much just ruined the day of my dog. That dog does not like snow at all. So you're getting him to go outside, pretty much unless he's like shaking like a dog passing a peach pit, he'll just look out off the porch and look back at me and like, I got to go that bad.
Yeah, he glances out the door and like, nah, man, I'm shitting in the house.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm finding me a corner and I'm not leaving it.
Yeah, our shepherd mix decided that she's going to go tear off into it because she does everything impulsively, and she took a big jump, sunk down about a foot, and then she had this look on her face like, what the hell just happened? And then the little Morky just disappears into it. We just got to make sure we pull him out.
That's why you keep the leash on so you can find him again.
Yeah, we just kind of pull him out like a spent tea bag in a glass.
or it looks like the scene from Jurassic Park 3, the velociraptors in the long grass.
Yeah.
Laughing at their expense.
That cracks me up. I love dogs, and watching their reactions just cracks me up. I could talk about my idiot dog all night, but I know that is not what everybody joined us for. Tonight we're going to be discussing the Philadelphia experiment, both the mystery surrounding it and the possibility that it happened versus the possibility the possibility that it didn't. We want to look at both sides of the argument, although there is a lot to be said for both sides. But before we get started, I wanted to kind of make a quick poll of the audience, get you guys' opinion, have everybody sound off. Was talking to Steve about this before the show and discussed it with my wife and my sons, and noticed that our peak viewing times seem to be early in the show, and the longer the show goes, the more it tends to drop off. How would you guys feel about us starting the show an hour, possibly 2 hours earlier? I know that affects everybody, not just those of us that are on the screen, but those of you that are watching. So, everybody sound off about what you think about the possibility of starting the show a little earlier. We might possibly start it as early as 7 p.m. or possibly 8. But just want to see what everybody thought about that. And, I'll kind of keep an eye on the chat and see what everybody thinks. Doc, what do you think?
I'm okay with it, man. I mean, I live in Mountain Time, so if we started, right now I'm on Central Time like you, I'm in Texas, but if we started the hour or two earlier, I think that'd be fine. An hour I think would probably be the best thing for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking an hour is probably optimal.
Yeah, because 2 hours would put me right in the middle of supper time.
Well, there we go. Don't want to interrupt supper time.
No, can't interrupt supper time.
That is a problem.
I don't want to get between you and your food, nor do I want to piss off Angie.
Yeah, she's got all kinds of knives, man. I might get stabbed, or maybe all of us would. Who knows?
You're closest.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a target of opportunity.
That's right.
He's got the trauma kits. He can heal himself. He'll be fine.
That's right.
Better keep a tourniquet on hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like most everybody's on board with it. Sal Paso says 8 p.m. would work for him. I'm finishing up my show by then, just uploading it. Awesome. Lanita says, I like it as it is. Supper at 7 to 8. Well, there are pros and cons. That's why I was kind of putting it to everybody to see what they thought.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just something I just wanted to make a decision and go, this is what's happening. I kind of wanted to get everybody's input on it because it affects more than just the three of us. It affects everybody involved with the show, people that watch and the people that participate in chat and everybody that hangs out. So, I appreciate you guys, letting us know, and we may push it out. I'll push it out to an hour early. I'll kind of go back over the show later and look at all the comments and see what everybody says when I've got more time to just basically check on it.
Yeah.
So from there we'll jump on into the show. I appreciate you guys, letting us kind of pick your brains and ask your opinions on that. So, what do you guys know about the Philadelphia experiment?
Well, you're talking about the official story or the urban legend side of it?
A little of both.
Well, from what I remember about it, it took place sometime in 1943, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The Navy was the U.S.S. Eldridge was the ship in question. It was a destroyer escort, if I remember correctly. And the official story is that the military is testing some type of degaussing experiment. Basically something to affect the magnetic field around this boat, make it less susceptible to mines and things like that. And they were testing out of the Philadelphia shipyard, as I remember correctly. That's the official word of it, and apparently, as far as it went, everything was all hunky dory. The experiment, came back with nothing really too crazy. You listen to the urban legend about it, a lot more happened. They're saying that it wasn't just a degaussing experiment; it was an experiment to maybe test invisibility or test phasing or something a lot more esoteric than just simply that. And there were stories of the ship time traveling and moving a distance of time instantaneously, and people getting stuck between the decks, and a whole bunch of mayhem and freaky stuff. I don't know what I'd like to believe. There just seems to be a little too much out there for it to be completely the Navy's official word. But I don't know how much I buy into it. It's interesting for sure.
My theory is never ever trust the official story because the official story is seldom anywhere close to the truth.
Right.
However, looking back at this, I can see where certain elements of it could be true and certain elements could be just grossly exaggerated. However, there are some facts that surround this that are incontrovertible. One, Project Rainbow involved the U.S.S. Eldredge. It was done in 1943. Some versions of the story say it was simply, like you were saying, a degaussing experiment to try to throw off magnetic torpedoes and mines, like you were saying. Other versions of the story say that they were trying to make the ship invisible to radar, to enemy radar, which also would be a very handy thing. What seems to be the commonality is they're talking about it was an application of unified field theory, which is Einstein's theory, and whatever they were doing involved some of Nikola Tesla's original notes. So whatever they were attempting to do, be it make it invisible to torpedoes, make it invisible to enemy radar, what happened wasn't what was planned. And again, any experiment the military ever does, the first couple times tend to go awry. Allegedly, the first experiment, the first time they fired up the field, that very little happened. It was the second time when they fired it up when things went really, really strange. And here's the part where we run into historical documents that are incontrovertible. the simple fact that harbor masters in the United States Navy are responsible for keeping meticulous logs of ships that are in and out of those ports. They have to be completely 100% accurate. The U.S. Navy's harbor master logs for Philadelphia and Norfolk, Virginia, logged the U.S.S. Eldridge in harbor at almost the same time. That's a big deal right there.
Yeah.
The fact that two harbor masters over 200 miles apart logged that ship as being in port. That lends a huge amount of credibility to what they claim happened. Now, what they claim happened was when they fired up the field, that the ship started glowing blue and disappeared out of the harbor, just vanished. And allegedly, that's when it reappeared in Norfolk Harbor over 200 miles away. Now, merchant ships, it takes better part of 2 days to travel that kind of distance. Now, I know Navy ships can travel faster than your average merchant ship, but that would still be a better part of a day's travel. I don't know that they had hydrofoil technology back in World War II, so I don't think we had a destroyer running at over 100 knots down the coast. So I don't think it covered that distance faster than was capable, and that ship was capable. However, the witness accounts talk about it being in Norfolk Harbor, and then the next minute it was gone. And that's where this story starts getting weird. Apparently, when it reappeared in Philadelphia Harbor, and they finally got the experiment shut down, there were people that were driven crazy. There were people that had lost all memory of the function, and then there were supposedly others who were fused into deck plates. And of the crew that survived, they were saying that many of them would just like fade in and out, like they were either turning invisible or being moved into another reality. And later in Philadelphia, when a bunch of sailors were on liberty, there was a bar fight broke out, and one eyewitness reported sailors from the Eldredge in a physical altercation, and they would fade in and out while they were fighting. This story basically didn't get broke until a merchant marine sailor named Carl Allen. And Carl Allen wrote letters to several people under an assumed name named Carlos Allende. And I believe he did this because he didn't want to be prosecuted for revealing Navy secrets. Now, there are those that say that, all this was just hearsay, that they overheard the Navy talking about invisibility technology, that all they were trying to do is making themselves invisible from torpedoes. And others argue the other side, that Allen really did see the Eldredge just up and disappear. We may never know the truth behind this, but this is where we want to start digging deeper beneath the surface, kind of scratching that itch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so hope everybody's with us so far. Doc, what do you think?
I mean, there's a lot of inconsistencies, not inconsistencies, but there's a lot of people who are obviously disclaiming, or saying his story was entirely a hoax. There was, there's also the stories that say, hey, not only did the ship disappear in this greenish bluish fog, it went back 10 minutes in time. So there's both sides of it. And is it A, did it really happen? Or B, playing devil's advocate here, was it a hoax that was some dude just trying to get notoriety? So I don't know. There's a lot of information, and like you said, the ship being logged at two different ports at the same time kind of lends a little bit of credibility to that.
And it just certainly makes the story all the more weird.
Yeah.
There was an article I read just a couple of years ago where a reporter tracked the Eldredge, and the Eldredge went on to have a long service in the Navy, even after that incident. And it was later in life sold to the Greek Navy, and they actually tracked the ship down to a scrapyard in Greece where once it had finally been decommissioned. So the ship itself was a real ship. I mean, it was, and again, it went on to have a lengthy career in the Navy. And I didn't find anything about it ever being considered a cursed ship or anything like that, because Navy's pretty big on their superstitions about ships. So, it's not like the ship was immediately taken and dismantled or vanished and never reappeared. So we know the ship went on to serve for a lengthy career. Now, whether or not the incident actually happened is a huge thing up for conjecture. And there's arguments to be made on both sides. And like John Doe was saying, he's posted a bunch of articles in the Discord that seem to support the side that it didn't happen. However, there are those nagging stories that just continue to rise about the Eldredge, and it doesn't really strike me as that far-fetched that the government would go to great lengths to cover something like that up, especially if they were trying to come up with some method to fool enemy radar. That's the last thing they would want the enemy to know about, and couple that with how many files from World War II are still classified. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of files that will never see the light of day, because even though that World War II ended, 70, 80 years ago, there's still very likelihood that those files could be incriminating or reveal secrets that they didn't want to know. There are even some people that think there was an alien connection to the whole Philadelphia experiment. However, we do know Project Rainbow really happened. We just don't know the full details behind it. And to me, that's the most interesting part, is not just that the Navy claims that what was reported didn't happen. It's that they've gone to such lengths to bury the story, to say this never happened. And that to me almost confirms it. I mean, I hate to be that way, but anytime somebody goes to such massive lengths to bury a story, you've got to believe there's some truth to it. I mean, look at the lengths the government went to basically discredit scientists that came forward about Bigfoot. I mean, what lengths would they go to bury somebody who was trying to talk about something that was that highly classified?
Right. Well, and there's stuff on the naval websites talking about it, history.navy.mil, military.com, talking about this, but they're at the same time they're like, well, was this actually ever a real thing? They always leave it open-ended at the end of their articles.
Right. And again, I'm not gonna jump in here and say that this 100% happened, nor am I going to say that I'm 100% convinced that it didn't happen. The simple fact is there's so much information out there, and they've gone to such huge lengths to try to suppress it, that it leads me to believe that there's a lot more going on with the Philadelphia experiment than we're probably ever going to know. They have made 2 feature-length movies about the Philadelphia experiment. The first one was made in the 80s, and it was pretty cutting-edge sci-fi, and it was pretty boilerplate stuff. It followed the story, as the Eldridge disappeared and it reappeared. It had jumped time. It pretty much followed the standard story, and it was a pretty good movie. I remember watching it when I was in my teens and early 20s. I've watched it several times. Then there was one they made for, I think it was the Sci-Fi Channel, a couple of years back. I don't remember exactly what year they made it, and ironically had one of the same actors in it that was in the first one, Michael Pare, only he played a government agent, a kind of a villain in the piece. But it was funny that they had the actor from the first Philadelphia experiment in the second one, and the second one was just, well, it was just kind of out there. It was a completely fictionalized story, didn't really follow much of the background of the Philadelphia experiment, other than the fact that the statement that it happened. So there are movies out there, and if you go on YouTube and search Philadelphia experiment, there are hundreds of YouTube shows or YouTube documentaries. There's even been History Channel documentaries about the Eldredge, and whether or not with this guy Carl Allen, aka Carlos Allende, was telling the truth or not is one of those things that's just widely speculated, both one side and the other, because he wasn't in the Navy. He was a merchant marine, and he he's talked about what he claimed he saw from the deck of his ship, which was I think a couple of berths over from the Eldridge. So yeah, I'm sure the Navy's produced lots of documentation that say it didn't happen. But for an eyewitness to describe seeing the Eldridge enveloped in blue energy and just disappear, and then you add to the fact that it was logged both in the Philadelphia harbor and the Norfolk harbor, to me is really kind of telling.
Well, one part of the story that I really struggle with the feasibility of, and that is, why the hell would they do a classified experiment in a harbor? You're talking this boat could go somewhere a little more remote. If you're
And
going to do something.
there are plenty of places where they're just completely Navy controlled, that there aren't any civilians there too.
Right.
But go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you finished my thought for me. It makes about as much sense as testing out the SR-71 at O'Hare. It's like there's going to be wandering eyes see this stuff. I don't know. Maybe they didn't think it was going to do quite as much as it did. I mean, if the experiment is simply a degaussing experiment, okay, an observer 2 berths away isn't going to necessarily notice the magnetic field of this boat changed.
Right.
And along with that, a lot of the speculation was that after they had done it the first time, they did not properly recalibrate the equipment. So when they restarted the generators, they weren't really prepared for what people say happened.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Doc. I think that they completely expected it just to interfere with radar and nobody be able to see anything at all. And I think if there's truth to this, if the Philadelphia experiment did happen as the legends say, I think it was completely unexpected. I don't think the Navy had any idea that was going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, because the Navy sponsored it. The Navy was like, hey, if this will keep us from hitting mines, the ship will still be visible to the naked eye, but if those will keep us from hitting these mines, then hell, we're all behind it. We're all for it. But if it was something that was totally unintentional, which I think it probably could have been, especially if they didn't recalibrate equipment, then then we have to think that, hey, could this have happened? Yeah, I mean, if people saw it, and like you said, the logs had the ship showing up in Norfolk right before it reappeared in Philadelphia, why are harbor masters gonna fudge on that kind of stuff? They're not.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that just sticks with me about it is how many times throughout the course of scientific experiment have they done something expecting one result and something completely unexpected happened?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just part of scientific discovery. They've tried things lots of different times and come up with something that they weren't expecting to happen at all. Sometimes it could be an unexpected chain reaction of chemicals reacting to each other, or in cases like when they were doing the Manhattan Project, they got a much bigger yield than they expected they were going to get. It's just things like that. In the course of scientific discovery, they have attempted experiments to do one thing, and something wildly unexpected has happened. So this is not outside the realm of possibility that the Navy truly intended to do just the degaussing thing, and something else entirely happened.
Well, I mean, think about the story of the Demon Core, if you've ever heard about that. Where these scientists were doing an experiment on one of the nuclear cores that was intended for, I think, the 3rd atomic weapon that we never ended up using. And if I remember correctly, they were propping the split core open with like a screwdriver, and it slipped. And suddenly, blue flash, this guy gets hit with a buttload of radiation, and dies a few days or weeks later. Some of these experiments weren't on a really good tether. I mean, you're talking, less than 2 years before we dropped the first atomic bomb. They were dealing with some pretty cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, and it always astounds me that some of our greatest scientific achievements have been discovered by accident. You know, like someone mentioned before, Viagra was originally intended to be a heart medication. That was a big shock for the test patients, I can tell you. Like,
Well,
I don't feel any different, but something weird's going on down there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's still used to treat portal hypertension. You know,
Mhm.
you know, it's you know, there's a reason you don't take it with nitrates. Your blood pressure hits the crapper.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely. And again, unintended consequences can lead to, you know, our unintentional, you know, mistakes. Like I said, you know, not properly recalibrate equipment can lead to unintentional consequences, unintended results.
Right.
I mean-
So it's completely possible that the original experiment was simply something along the lines of degaussing, and it went completely unexpectedly. It went awry. I mean, even to this day, we're still only scratching the surface of what electromagnetic energy can do. Nikola Tesla had a strange understanding of how the EM field works, and most of his research and design notes are still classified.
Yeah.
So, you know, and those discoveries that Tesla was onto led to, you know, lots of other major discoveries. I mean, he was talking about cell phones back in the 20s. And although he didn't call them cell phones, he was talking about the ability to have an entire communications array in your vest pocket. That to me sounds like a cell phone,
Yeah.
and that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the understanding of the frequencies that we do now, and that's the EM field. And we're able to broadcast communications much like we're doing right now all over the world in seconds, something completely unheard of in the 1920s and 30s.
Right.
I mean, they were just getting the Marconi wireless radio into service.
Yeah. And what better way to keep things covered is to than to discredit people, or, you know, write them off as a hoax.
Mhm.
So, you know, that, you know, a little bit of sleight of hand.
Yeah.
And we know things have been covered up, and with the sleight of hand. And so, you know, take everything with a grain of salt.
Right. Exactly. And when you and I both know, you know, Doc, we both spent time in the military. We both know the government's covered up and hidden, classified, deeply classified stuff
No.
you and I will never see revealed in our lifetimes.
No, they wouldn't do that. They have our best interests at heart.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But look at what they did during the first atomic explosion tests. They took platoons of soldiers out there and set them down so they could study the effects of what the radiation did to them.
Right. Exactly.
And we know they did that, and the government was like, "Oh no, we didn't do that," until so many, you know, hundreds of guys started coming down with cancer, and they're like, "Oh, okay, we might have done that." And we know for a fact they did it, and they finally owned up to it. But I don't think they ever made it right with the families of people they did that to. I mean, and that's something that they would have very happily buried had nobody, you know, started, you know, finding out. The actual story was broke by news journalists that were digging into it. So the government never did just come out on their own and go, "Oh, by the way, we might have exposed a few hundred people to radiation just to see what would happen to them."
Right. Right.
Oh, look, a distraction.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
look, something
exactly.
shiny. Look over here. Look over here. Oh, no, we didn't do that. No, surely not. So, you know, we have no idea what some of the experiments the government has tried, and which ones have succeeded and which ones failed. Simply because they classify that stuff, and unless even if you have a high-end clearance, it's all that stuff's on a need-to-know basis. It's so compartmentalized that even if you've got nearly Pentagon level, like top secret SCI clearance, you're still not going to know unless you're working on that project.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's just how clearance works.
Yeah. And even if you do have the proper clearance, things may still be.
Yeah, you may only get pieces.
Right. You may
or your particular piece.
Correct.
And so, you know, can I say that this happened? No. Can I say it didn't happen? Again, no. I mean, you know, sure, there's a lot of evidence out there that say it didn't happen. You know, there are official reports released by the Navy. There are articles written by military.com. And other sources as well, but there's just as many out there that say, yes, this happened. And there's some details you just can't ignore. like the fact that it was seen. It was actually witnessed as disappearing, and of course, they went to great lengths to try to discredit that guy. And maybe he was a whack job. I don't know. I've never met the man,
Right.
so I can't say the guy was crazy. I can't say he made the story up because we'll never know. We'll never meet the guy. However, we do know for a fact that the government has a long and glorious track record of smearing the shit out of anybody that comes forward with something they don't like. Let's take for a prime example Dr. Melba Ketchum, who did the Bigfoot DNA study. What did they do to her? They wrecked her career, just ruined that woman. Oh, he got a super chat from S. Dresden. Hey, Dresden, thank you, buddy. Oops, I hit the wrong one. It says, do you think Tesla was close to being able to use electromagnetic energy on a transdimensional level? I would say he was damn close. And in fact, I think he was close enough that the government, as soon as he died, the government swept in and seized everything in his hotel room, because he died in a hotel room. I believe it was in New York. And you still can't stay in that room. They won't let you stay in that room. That building still exists. But they seized everything and then immediately classified it so high that most people will never ever see the light of day on Tesla's notes. So I think Tesla was very close. In fact, one of the stories goes around about Tesla is that the Tunguska Siberia explosion might have been him. Again, it's not verified. It was supposedly what happened was Tesla created a broadcast energy transmitter where he could transmit energy anywhere he wanted to. And supposedly to prove that he could do it, when Commodore Perry was going over the North Pole, he was supposed to broadcast energy over the pole to a designated area. Supposedly his coordinates were off, and the explosion at Tunguska, Siberia happened over it, which is completely credible. You talk about sending out incredible amounts of electromagnetic energy. God knows what it's going to do when it touches down. And another thing, allegedly, Tesla had proven that he could broadcast energy from one point to another without wires. And when he showed it to the big moguls of the time, the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, the first thing they asked was, "That's great, but where do we put the meter?" And his reply was, "You don't put a meter on this. This is designed to give free energy to people anywhere in the world." And it wasn't long after that they locked him up as being a nut. When it started looking like it was going to cut into somebody's bottom line, they did their best to ruin the guy. And because of that, God knows where our technology would be today if they had fully backed Tesla instead of locking him up. And again, the Philadelphia experiment was supposedly based off of Tesla's design notes, so they had no idea what it was going to do.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Tesla was an unmitigated genius. Maybe he was crazy, maybe he wasn't, but they certainly went out of their way to make sure that he was viewed that way. Exactly. And we got another super chat. Awesome. William Bedard. Thank you, sir. Says, so I hear there were tons of silver involved. Such amazing metal and still only 23 an ounce. I think silver is the most undervalued asset, period. You may be onto something. We know that the precious metals like golds and silvers are valued, and they are both extremely good energy conductors. And why do we use copper? Because it's far less expensive. I wanted to check. I think I missed some questions. If you guys have a question, make sure you put question in caps so I can spot it. I missed one. Oh, there was a comment from Louis Noriega. Says KTLA in the early days was filming an atomic explosion, and then he showed that they said, there goes the 82nd Airborne parachuting in. Oh, and that's 100% what I'm talking about. They did that kind of crap just to see what would happen, to see what kind of cancer it would give these poor bastards. And how many soldiers who valiantly served their country died just because the government wanted to know what the hell was going to happen?
Yeah, that's a whole nother show right there.
Yeah, that's something that just, when I think about it, it really just chaps my ass. Because I mean, when I was in the military, when I broke my leg, I was a guinea pig for a unapproved unapproved by the FDA painkiller that they gave me to try, and it didn't work. It made me sick, and it never made it to the market, and I never saw anybody else get prescribed it. But the military was throwing it at us to see what it would do, and I had an adverse reaction to it, and they ended up having to put me on something else. So, don't tell me the military doesn't experiment on our own people. We're just, paid guinea pigs, basically.
Here, take this. You'll be fine. Trust us.
Or if you go to the VA, oh, you got bone sticking through the skin? Here, take a couple Motrin and a Band-Aid. We'll see you in a month.
Fact. You have hearing loss and tinnitus and joint pain. Here's 10%.
Yeah. Oh, it's not service related. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
You ruined your back carrying a 70-pound rucksack everywhere. Not service related. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
You clearly did a lot of rucksacking on your own.
Yes. And Naoma brings out something I was going to mention briefly was, talking about experimentation, the Tuskegee syphilis study, another travesty right there, Yeah,
Naoma mentioned that. Hey, Naoma, thanks for joining us. You're welcome to jump in if you want.
All right. So the harbor masters reports, those where were those published? Who published those?
The first time I heard about it was on the History Channel, and I thought, well, considering the History Channel's track record with questionable documentaries, like the one that they did on mermaids, The Body Found, that everybody thought was a real documentary till they got at the very end in the credits, and like this was 100% work of fiction. That kind of crap. History Channel has kind of gotten away from actual history and started doing a lot of sensationalized stuff. So I first heard about that on the History Channel, about that being reported in two ports by two different harbor masters. And when I first heard it, History Channel still had a pretty good reputation, and I didn't really question it. But then I started digging more, and I found it on multiple websites, and I'd have to hunt up the other websites to quote those as sources. But the first time I heard the Harbor Master thing was on the History Channel, and either those other websites are repeating what the History Channel said, or they've got other sources. But I've heard it from about half a dozen places. Oh, got another super chat. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Naoma says, the U.S. used the information learned from the Germans and even went so far as to rescue some of their doctors to learn more. Very true. I mean, my uncle was stationed aboard Enterprise in the 60s, and he told me the story. He was on deck on the Enterprise when Werner von Braun was brought aboard Enterprise. So I don't know what the hell they were doing, but that was a top Nazi scientist.
Yeah, I mean, he headed up the B1, B2 programs, and pretty sure he worked on all the Apollo programs as well. So he knew a little bit about rocket propulsion, that's for sure.
Just a little bit. But considering how many sources the information about it happening in more than one harbor master's journal, to me that kind of gives credibility to it, because these are independent sources. Tracking them down after finding out on the History Channel took a little bit of doing, but the information is out there. And is it enough for me to say 100% the Philadelphia experiment had happened? Well, we know it happened. It was called Project Rainbow, but whether it happened the way that Carlos Allende said or the way the U.S. Navy said, we don't know. I mean, but there's evidence that say both ways. And I hate to show my tinfoil hat. Of course, I'll show where the green screen comes out part of my head, but I hate to really show my tinfoil hat. But a lot of times I lean toward the conspiracy theorists on these things because of our government's track record for burying things and burying people that speak out against them.
Well, like I said, earlier, the quickest way to hide something or bury it is to discredit the sources. You know what I mean? So that's funny.
Oh.
Appreciate the super chat, Mr. William Bedard. It's not that we don't read stuff like that. We try to stay apolitical. I don't really want to get into a political discussion on either side of the spectrum, simply because that's a great way to cause an argument in the chat, and we don't want to do that. We much prefer to keep everything on the subject of cryptids or weird things. We don't, for the same reason, we don't try not to delve into religion. It just tends to alienate people. So I don't really want to alienate any of our audience, no matter what their views. So we're just here to talk about weird crap and cryptids. Anything political or anything like that, we try to shy away from. So no offense, but I appreciate the super chat, but we try to shy away from anything political. Blues in G Music says the medical studies the National Socialists did actually saved my life. I'm allergic to penicillin. They came up with tetracycline, erythromycin, and others. I was on the Enterprise too, mid-70s. That's awesome. Yeah, my uncle served from I think 63 to 72 before he got out. Somewhere along those lines. He passed away several years ago, so I can't go back and ask him, but I know he was on Enterprise for quite a while throughout most of the Vietnam War.
You get on kind of shaky ground when you start talking about some of these, like the Nazi experiments and whatnot. I mean, there is some phenomenal science that came out of it. And it advanced at such an amazing rate because there was no reining in the ethics of it.
Right.
You could do whatever experiment you wanted to, that is now limited by, international laws, and
they were considered war crimes.
Yeah, it definitely. I don't want to say the legislation hindered progress because that makes it sound like I support it, but things do advance at a slower rate as a result.
Yeah,
when any risk is okay, certainly, one would argue that they were doing the right thing, but there was some needed science that came out of it.
Definitely, and sometimes any scientific breakthrough comes at terrible cost. I mean, we now know a lot of the effects of nuclear radiation from a nuclear detonation on human beings, but look how many soldiers got put basically in direct exposure to these detonations, and many of them died for that knowledge. I mean, it's one of those things that it's a black mark on science, that they were perfectly willing to sacrifice human lives to just basically study the effects. And that's the kind of crap that gets people in hot water years later when things get told and the truth comes out. And I think that's why to this day a lot of government stuff is still classified, because they don't want us to know what the human life cost was.
We learned our lesson from Nuremberg, huh?
No kidding. S. Dresden gave us a super chat. Thank you, sir. So are you familiar with the Vril Society? I've heard the name. I read about it somewhere, but I'm drawing a complete blank. Werewolf 5674 says the Navy used the cold water study done to Navy prisoners. John Doe says Von Braun was vital to the space race, even if he himself stated his role as somewhat overblown. Possibly. I mean, basically at the end of World War II, it was basically a game of hungry hippos between allied nations and Russia to see who could gobble up all these scientists. And we know the Russians got their hands on quite a few. And we got our hands on some, and the British got their hands on some, and I'm sure other countries may have scooped some up. But the fact of the matter is, instead of being prosecuted for war crimes committed Most of them were given amnesty to use their knowledge to help the United States and other countries, which while mentally I understand it, I still find it appalling that they were basically given a free pass for all the crap they did. And I on an intellectual level, I understand how much knowledge was gained from their experience, but the simple fact is they could have given us that information from a prison cell instead of being given a free pass. But that's another discussion for another time. Back to the Philadelphia experiment. When we start seeing disinformation and outright cover-ups involving an incident, it leads you to believe there is some grain of truth to it. How much truth was there to the Philadelphia experiment? We're likely to never know. It's probably still heavily classified for the entirety of the information. We may never know. But I do believe there is enough there to make us justifiably skeptical that the official story actually is the truth. And inevitably in situations like this, you look at one side and you look at the other, and generally somewhere in the middle, you're going to find the truth. So I think it's likely that the Navy did far more than they're willing to admit, but maybe not as much as was reported. So, I know John Doe has put a lot of information in the Discord, and I've read over it. And it's great information. Don't get me wrong. If you guys get a chance to swing by the Discord, go check out the documentation that he put in there. But it's one side of the story, and what we're trying to do is present information for both. And I think there's enough to make us suspect of the cover story, and I think that's about the best case scenario we can say for the entirety of the story of the Philadelphia experiment. Maybe it didn't reappear with people fused into bulkheads, but I don't think it was an innocent degaussing experiment either.
Oh, right. Well, and you made a point earlier that sometimes things just come off the rails. I mean, you look at some of the initial flight testing and stuff for the moon spacecraft. Accidents happen. Things unexpected occurred. The Apollo 1 astronauts were killed because something unexpected happened. It hadn't occurred to them, what an electric short would do in a pure oxygen atmosphere.
Right. And 3 astronauts burned up on the launch pad because of it.
Yeah. It's
Grissom, White, and Chaffee.
Yeah. And if you get a chance to read the whole account of the Manhattan Project, it is terrifying how that all unrolled, and how like the first nuclear weapon, the Trinity weapon that used to test everything, how the thing was held together with literally duct tape. And I've done some pretty inventive and ingenious crap with duct tape and baling wire. I wouldn't feel comfortable testing an atomic weapon with it, but
right.
We were desperate. We did desperate things, and there was a race, safety be damned.
Mm-hmm. John Doe brought up a good point. He says, I would rather wager that while the experiment was real to some extent, that the name of the ship is wrong. And that kind of coincides with what Steve said. Why would they do this on a ship in a public harbor?
In broad daylight.
Yeah, in broad daylight. Now, granted, it could have been something as simple as if something happened, they had no plans for it to happen, or it could have been misdirection. It could have been, they said this is happening on this ship at this specific time, and it was done on another ship, miles away in a hidden harbor. Or the Navy may have tried it more than once, which is in and of itself is a terrifying event. Let's say, for example, just off the wall, just for the sake of argument, that it happened the way the conspiracy theorists think, that the Eldredge disappeared out of Philadelphia Harbor, reappeared for a short time in Norfolk Harbor, and then returned to Philadelphia Harbor with people fused to the decks. Let's say that happened. If the Navy would have seen that as a failure, and they would have tried again. So maybe it happened on the Eldridge and on other ships that we don't know anything about. I mean, to me, it would make perfect sense that if they had a certain amount of success, yeah, the ship did disappear, but there were casualties. They would want to try to dial that in so they could do it safely. So that would be seen by the Navy as a limited success, not a failure.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine a naval inspector, assuming that things did go down the way the urban legend says? Can you imagine an inspector walking along that ship, seeing people fused in the deck and people laying there, comatose, facing in and out of reality? I can see the inspector going, "Well, there's your problem."
Right.
Naomi just cracked me up. She says, I trust a fart after eating gas station sushi more than I trust the government.
Exactly.
In situations like that, the shit gets real.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. Be wishing you wear your brown pants.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Rethink Inc.
Man.
says no one trusts the government, but the government runs what the science says. Exactly. It's probably why we still know next to nothing about UFOs, other than what they're slowly releasing, and about Bigfoot. I mean, the FBI report that they released on Bigfoot flat out stated there was overwhelming evidence for the existence of the creature, but they thought it was dead now. Like only one of them ever existed. And that made absolutely no sense. But the FBI released just a couple of years ago a highly redacted file that essentially said they found overwhelming evidence for the existence of the creature, but they went on to conclude that they believed it was likely dead now. If there was one of them, there had to have been a breeding population, at least at one point. One creature does not mysteriously appear, nor does it start a viable population.
Some feedback.
It's hard to keep up with everything.
Yeah. I was trying to catch up. I'm so far behind on the comments. I'm not even going to try. I could spend half an hour scrolling back and trying to catch up because the comments have been coming fast and furious, which is awesome. I love that, but I miss a lot of the comments.
John Doe kind of elaborated on my naval inspector comment, and all this stuff happened and put her back in service. Then somebody fused to the deck. They just take a big paint roller with Battleship Gray, just go over the top of it. They'll be fine. Send her back out.
Somebody get me the grinder.
Yeah.
Well, more than likely, if they were going to put it back in service, they would have cut that bulkhead out.
They'd
and
have
just
to
weld a new bulkhead in.
Yeah.
Or
what were these guys going to say? What were the inspectors going to say?
How do we know that the Eldredge that continued on its life in the service was the same Eldredge? They might have taken it out of commission to completely take it apart and study everything that happened to it down to the single bulkheads and just renamed a new destroyer, the Eldredge, and pressed it right back into service so nobody would know what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And if this anomaly happened where people were fused to the decks, I mean, let's be real. Yeah, like you said earlier, that would be seen as a failure, and they would discredit themselves. So, what do you think their orders would be to people? You didn't see anything. Don't say a word.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, people are always like, well, nobody said anything. Well, they were probably under orders not to say anything, under threat of treason or something like that, under threat of death or treason. So who knows, man? Who knows? There's so many different avenues.
Look at modern military. I mean, you and I both know that once you have a clearance above a certain level, you're sworn to secret for sometimes decades after you're out of the military.
Exactly.
Esther Eston gave us a $5 super chat. It says von Braun alleged to have stated before he died that in the future our government would false flag an alien invasion and we did not reach the moon. That's pretty interesting. I've got to read more on von Braun. I really do. That's one I hadn't heard before, but I find it interesting. I mean, it would not surprise me that our government would stage a false flag, something like that.
No, not at all.
John Doe said the Greece buyers would probably be disappointed to learn that the never used ship was actually fresh off the teleporter. Well, the Navy was cranking ships out during World War II. It is not outside the realm of possibility that they just pulled the flag of the Eldredge and put the flag on another ship, renamed it, pressed it into service, because it went on for another 30 years. It stayed in service and before it was sold to the Greeks, and then they later scrapped it. So it is completely feasible that there was damage done to the Eldridge that they wanted to study, and they just pulled it out of service. And to avoid suspicion and going, hey, what the hell happened to the Eldridge? Why was it taken out of service? Suddenly, the Eldridge comes coasting into harbor with a different flag on it. I mean, that to me, that's probably the most easily explainable portion of that. It is not outside the realm of possibility for the Navy just to pull one off the assembly line. Because look how many hundreds of what were those ships? Liberty ships they cranked out during World War II. And I know they were cranking military vessels out almost as fast because they were getting sank left, right, and sideways by U-boats. So the military was at an at-war footing, and they were cranking out ships on an unprecedented level. It is completely possible they kept one off the books and just recommissioned it as the Eldridge and scrapped the other one so they could find out what happened to it. James McGill Jr. says 70% of the Earth is water and only 10% has been explored. Technology has not been developed to search portions of it. Aliens are here. Subterranean Earth is a celestial lab. That's all. I wouldn't argue that point. I mean, when we did the show about UFOs and U.S.S, we looked at places that could very easily been underwater bases. So again, that's not outside the realm of possibility. Then John Doe says, to put in perspective, the U.S. in 1943 built more warships than the entirety of the Axis powers over the entirety of the war. Yeah, so if we were cranking ships out that fast, they could have recommissioned one of them as the Eldridge and nobody been the wiser. Because guaranteed the American public had no idea which of those ships how many of those ships were being commissioned and how many were put to sea. What was the big saying back then? Loose lips sink ships. They were telling people to not talk about letters they got from their sailors at sea, so they wouldn't accidentally let someone know where that ship might be at any given time or what their patrol pattern was. Yeah. John Doe says the U.S. ended the war with more aircraft carriers than Germany had capital ships in general at its absolute peak. And that statistic could have changed had the British Navy not gotten lucky and stopped Bismarck. If Bismarck had broke through, it would have been a marauder. It would have been sinking shipping. Well, look what it did to HMS Hood. In its opening engagement, Bismarck spotted Hood at 15 miles away and blew her in half with her first salvo. Any ship capable of that is not something you wanted to get out into the Atlantic shipping lanes. Mm-mm. I mean, it had bigger guns and thicker armor than the Missouri. That ship would have been hard to stop, and it was a fluke that they did. Torpedo bomber got a lucky hit and jammed her rudder, and all it could do was steam in a circle. If it had not been for that one lucky bit, it would have basically blasted a hole in the British defense lines and hit the Atlantic. So, weird little things like that changed the entire course of the war. And Bismarck had a sister ship called the Tirpitz, and Tirpitz got basically caught in a fjord, and dive bombers took it out. If Tirpitz and Bismarck both had made it out into the Atlantic, they would have been unstoppable. And again, both of them were taken out by just lucky flukes. So, be that as it may, if we were doing experiments like the Philadelphia experiment, it's not outside the realm of possibility to think the Germans might have tried it too. I mean, we know when it comes to weird technology, the Germans were pushing everything they could find.
Well, they certainly had a different perspective on engineering for sure. Wasn't it? Weren't their tanks known for being particularly armored in the front compared to a lot of the contemporary tanks? And wasn't until much later we figured out that they weren't as armored in the back, and we could go around and deal with it. They kind of had a history of over engineering things and being very resourceful and creative with what they did do.
Sorry, guys. I'll grab a drink of coffee.
All right.
I think we've pretty much really dug into the pros and cons of Philadelphia experiment. Did it happen? We can't say for sure. Did it not happen? Again, we can't say for sure. There is so much information out there that say yes and no, and there are little historical gems that pop up that lead us to believe that it might some version of the story might have actually happened. We know for a fact Eldridge was a real ship. We know Project Rainbow existed, just to what extent, and that is the big mystery. Hopefully, we've presented enough information that you guys are able to form your own conclusions. Again, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you one side or the other is right. Somewhere in the middle is the truth. And it's going to be one of those classified secrets that we will probably never ever be told the complete truth on.
Absolutely, yeah. We're never going to know the full story on it because there's so many conflicting reports to deflect, and redirect things for sure.
Anybody got any questions?
Anyone? Bueller?
John Doe, I'm with you. World War II is a subject I always find very fascinating and something I could talk about for hours.
Thanks, Blues. Yeah, feeling better, man. Just tired. Appreciate it.
There's a whole lot of that going around nowadays.
Yeah, no kidding.
Overworked, underpaid, and dead ass tired.
Yeah. Making an unexpected trip down to Texas.
Well, it was funny when you sent me that picture. I was like, "What the hell is he doing in Clayton, New Mexico?"
Yeah, because I took the picture that the Charmaine, whatever her name is,
Charmaine James.
Yeah, Charmaine James barrel racer. I was like, because we were talking about that there today. I said, I gotta click a picture of that and show DA I'm heading through his old stomping grounds.
I went to grade school with her.
That's crazy, man.
There's no doubt in my mind she probably doesn't have a clue who the hell I am now, but I haven't seen her since probably 1982. So I could walk past her on the street and she'd never know who I was.
It's only 40 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Doc, have you got a kit to show us tonight?
Let me grab one real quick.
Okay.
Stand by.
Awesome.
All right. So, people who are looking for everyday carry kits, my big thing with people who want to who say, hey, I want to carry a med kit, but that's a big but is one of those things is typically what I like to call an excuse, not a reason, because you don't have any reason not to carry anything kind of medical on you. So one of the things I developed was a little ankle medical kit here, and this is my second prototype that I had made up, and I've been carrying this thing on my ankle for about 5 years. Pretty nasty, but it works. And it's one of those things that it's got my top 5 items in there. It's got a tourniquet. You can put a cat tourniquet in there, or a soft tee. It's got a 12-foot roll of hemostatic gauze, combat gauze, a pressure bandage, 2 chest seals, and a pair of gloves. So it's got my top 5 items in there, and it's one of those things that I feel like, you know, you're never gonna miss it unless you actually need it. And so I carry this with me every day. When I'm wearing boots, I throw the components down in my boot or my boots, and I'm I'm still good to go. But it's a thing that this thing weighs about 12 ounces, and you're not gonna miss it at all unless you don't have it on you. So this kit, Dark Angel Medical ankle kit, is made out of a stretchy nylon webbing, because a lot of the ankle kits out there I've seen were not really that comfortable, and they didn't fit well around somebody's ankle. They didn't perform as well, and this is pretty low profile. Definitely not going to fit under skinny jeans or any kind of tapered pants, anything like that. So I had one guy write me a while back, and he said, "Hey, this doesn't fit under my tapered pants." And I was like, "Yeah, brother, it's not gonna. You're gonna, like, you got a tumor on your ankle if you wear this thing under your little skinny jeans or your tapered pants. But under some standard, you know, straight cut jeans, boot cut jeans, it'll fit just fine." And this is something I tell people, look, man, this is something you can wear every day comfortably. Unless you got shorts on, then you look a little goofy wearing it. But you know, that's what cargo shorts are for, right?
Absolutely.
To throw stuff in your pockets. I still wear the old dad cargo shorts. You know, my daughter.
Oh, me too.
I love those things, man. They're so multi-purpose, and it's one of those things where I tell people, look, man, carry something on you. And again, this is my top 5, 12 ounces. You're not going to miss it. I mean, a pocket knife and your wallet probably weigh as much as that, depending on what you have or other stuff you have in your pockets. You know, I see these guys are carrying, I've got 2 flashlights and 2 knives and a sextant and a flint and steel and a compass and, you know, a Viz 17 panel. I'm like, well, where's your medical? And they're like, I got no way to carry medical. And I'm like, no, dude, you need to carry something. So this is the Dark Angel Medical ankle kit with my top 5 items in there for a no crap trauma kit, and can make a difference. Actually, I've had 2 of these used to save people's lives, which is actually really cool. So one of them was one of my instructors, and one of them was a police officer. Do y'all remember when the riots broke out a while back? I think it was in L.A. And a guy had an improvised, basically an IED. They said homemade fireworks. I said, oh, you mean an IED? And it blew his hand off. One of the LAPD officers had one of our ankle kits on his ankle and utilized his tourniquet to stop the bleed on that guy's arm, keep him bleeding to death. So
that's awesome.
Pretty cool stuff, man.
That is awesome.
There's my shameless plug.
Sal Paso said, did we hit the 2K yet? We are 16 away from hitting the 2K. So we are really close. Hopefully we'll be hitting that very soon. Also, folks, if you haven't had the opportunity yet, please hit that like and subscribe button. Hit the little bell icon on the YouTube channel so you'll get notified anytime we go live, and share the videos with your friends that you think might like this kind of content, because it does help the channel grow, helps us reach a bigger audience, and help us continue to bring this kind of content and continue bringing stories that hopefully are entertaining and intriguing. Also, if you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, down where you like and subscribe button, there's a little join button, and that allows you to help keep the channel growing. You'll get special icons and access to videos before they're released. Videos like location videos when I'll go out to places like Joe Bald and shoot videos, or anytime we go out and do a cryptid investigation, those videos will be on there before we show them anywhere else. So you'll have access to those early, and look for a lot more of those coming in the very near future. We're going to have a bunch of those up. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I was planning on doing one this weekend, but it is what my sergeant in the Army referred to as ball shriveling cold, and it was a lot of snow on the ground, and some of these back roads aren't paved. And my little Nissan Rogue is a great little vehicle on snow and ice, But some of these places I want to go don't get cell reception, so I don't want to go down someplace and wind up stuck there for the winter.
That'd be a little prohibitive.
Or
so
become a popsicle.
Yeah, no kidding. So we're wanting to hit some of these places once the snow and ice have melted away. And next week it's supposed to stay above freezing for a while. So keep my fingers crossed. We'll be able to get some of those here shot soon.
That'd be awesome.
Werewolf 56 5674 says, I watched Zillafoot. Man, that was bad. I was looking at that on Amazon Prime, and it was interesting to say the least. Kyle Real was saying the main roads are good. Yeah, but I live on a back residential street that never gets plowed. Down if I'm go down to like Blunk Road, it's not even paved. It's gravel, and there's only like 4 or 5 houses down that far on Blunk Road, so you can guarantee they're not grading that. And then a couple of the other places I want to go to film are narrow 2-lane highways that are in deep rural Missouri. So I don't think we're going to see much road improvements done down there either. Kyle says, Doc, you're looking good.
Thank you, brother. Feeling a little bit better. Still tired, but I'm pushing through it.
And that's all anyone can do. Estrezan says, DA, you don't have a 4x4 pickup, brother? No, I do not. I have a little SUV that's front wheel drive. I want to get a 4-wheel drive, but that has not been in the cards.
Well, I got to test out the. Oh, sorry, Doc. Go ahead.
That's all right, man. So I have to bring mine down, and we'll check it out. DA with my lift kit and my big tires. I think we could get over some stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, I want to get in there to the Combs Ferry campground that they bulldozed over. It takes a really good 4-wheel drive to get into that place.
The weather finally gave me an opportunity to test out the all-wheel drive on my little grocery getter, and it did a pretty good job with the ice and snow. Thankfully.
Well, we definitely need to get together, Steve, and go to some of these places.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's been too long since we've actually got to hang out with the Black Plague of the 21st century. We've been leery about going anywhere.
I was going to say, I've got a couple of samples of some really fine whiskey waiting for you.
I'm looking forward to that. John Doe says, there's a place in Texas where you can drive a vintage Sherman tank. That would be fun as hell.
But that would get back to that campground.
He also says you can buy demilitarized tanks with proper permits. Yeah, but I don't think I would want to pay the gas bill to drive one from Springfield to Combs Ferry, nor to have the roads repaired that I tore up getting there.
I was watching the guy from Kentucky Ballistics in Demolition Ranch. He was driving around this funny little tank-looking thing. He called it a Sherp. And it's got like 2 treads on it, and there's a hatch on the windshield swings out, and that's how you get in and out of it. I'm like, I need one of them. That shit looks like fun.
It would be fun.
It tops out at 25 miles an hour, but damn, it'd be fun at 25.
Yeah, that there is an RV.
Yeah, you can get that sucker into some backcountry you can't get most vehicles into. Hoodoo Transport says I need a 4x4 Squatch Buster pickup. Well, I definitely would love to get one. I already told the wife I want a 4-wheel drive on our next vehicle.
Yeah, 4-wheel drive's nice. I don't know what I'd do without mine, especially out there, because living out in the sticks like I do, and them not plowing the roads, it can make getting to work a little bit sketchy sometimes, for sure. So it definitely has saved my bacon more than once.
Well, they make kits for vehicles, and Doc, something you might want to look into, considering how much snow y'all get. They replace the drive tires on 4-wheel drives, the drive wheels, with basically little track kits that bolt on like the wheel, and they just spin. Those are really cool looking.
They make one for the Polaris Razors too. I've got a Polaris Razor 900 side by side, and they make them for those too. turns
That's
it into
awesome.
a little mini snowcat. Is what
Man, that would
what
be
it looks
awesome.
like. Yeah.
Get in so much trouble with that.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Put those
Get it-
threads on it and mount a gun. That's all you need.
Yeah.
We'd get into some back country so far back they'd never find our bodies.
We'd mount the belt fed on a pedal mount in the passenger seat for you, DA.
There we go, leaning back.
Oh goodness.
That's cryptid hunting in style.
There
Heck
you
yeah.
go. And this is the real reason that Bigfoot won't make himself known to us.
It's like, screw that. They have automatic weapons.
You know that there's a Bigfoot someplace looking around a tree going, what the hell them sons of bitches doing?
Was that the Dukes of Hazzard horn I just heard? I don't know.
Either that or you need like a 1920s Ooga.
Yeah, old Ooga horn.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be
Exactly.
pretty funny. My brother had an Ooga horn on his truck for a while. I loved that thing. It was loud as hell, though.
Oh goodness. Have put a semi horn on and have our own infrasound going on.
We blast infrasound right back at it. Get a Burlington Northern train horn.
Better put your earplugs in, that's for
No
sure.
kidding. Whew.
Oh my goodness.
This is why it's probably good we don't have money.
No kidding. Sal Paso says no train horn. Speaking of Sal is doing the audiobook for my sci-fi series, and he is getting very close to having the first of the sci-fi series done. So guys,
excellent.
be watching for that here in the coming days. Also, Cam Buckner is almost done with Codename Wild Hunt, Curse of the Wendigo. I'm actually supposed to call him tomorrow so we can talk about that. And he's got some other projects in the works that him and I are going to be working on together that I'm pretty excited about. Don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet, but look for more collaborations between me and Cam Buckner in the very near future.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Good stuff.
Now that's funny. Blues and G Music says, John Doe, they said the Enterprise top speed was 35 knots. We cruised at 50 knots, went from Subic Bay to Hong Kong in less than 24 hours. Rough ride, but we made it. I had almost the same story from my uncle. He said when they were leaving the Gulf of Tonkin, they had the opportunity to stop in Pearl for Liberty or to go home. And the home port was I believe San Fran, and the skipper asked him, said, "Do we stop in Hong Kong? Not Hong Kong. Do we stop in Pearl or do we go home?" And everybody was like, "Just get us home." It was right at their end of deployment for Vietnam, and he said they blew by the mouth of Pearl Harbor at 45 knots, and the breakers coming off the back of the ship were tossing sailboats up onto the shore, and they got a congressional ass chewing when they got back to port.
Y'all created a damn tsunami.
Yeah, they were wrecking sailboats in Pearl Harbor.
Well, it's funny that 35 knots comes out. I've had several family members and friends that were involved in the Navy, and one of them knew a lot about like the Seawolf class submarines, and then another one did this, another one did that. And when you ask them how fast these ships could go, they always would tell me in excess of 35 knots. That they, for whatever reason, that's like the magic number. And I'm like, okay, we've had ships that would do in excess of 35 knots since the 1960s. Like, well, it's in excess, or like you ask how deep they can dive, and it's like in excess of 500 feet or whatever. I'm like, yeah, no shit. What's the answer?
I asked a Navy recruiter one time how deep the Los Angeles class attack submarines could dive. He goes, "Well, I can't tell you its maximum depth because that's classified, but I can tell you that it can dive in excess of 120 feet." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit. A guy with a scuba tank can dive to 120 feet."
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Like, ooh, 120 feet.
Yeah, you get some
People have
nice and
free
nitrox.
dove. Yeah, people have free dove deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah, get some nice and nitrox and get into 200, 300 feet, man.
Oh.
Kyle Reel, hit the wrong one. Kyle Reel says, probably going to head to bed soon. Good night. Hey, dude, thank you for being with us tonight. Hope you have a great night.
Yeah.
And then John Doe says, but I suppose when you have the power of literally tearing apart the base fabrication itself to create energy.
Oh, mercy.
Have either of you guys seen either one or both of the Philadelphia Experiment movies?
I haven't seen either of them.
I've not
The
seen
one-
either of them.
The one that was released in the 80s was actually closest to the Philadelphia Experiment story that's going around. Of course, it's a fictionalized account, and it was a pretty cool movie. I mean, I enjoyed watching it. I'd watch it again. The one that they made for Sci-Fi was just completely made up. Had very little, other than the Eldridge and the experiment itself, had very little to do with the story that went around. But it was an interesting story. It had some good people in it. I think Malcolm McDowell was in it. Yeah, he played a crazy scientist. Go figure.
Yeah, I say you can't go wrong with Malcolm McDowell.
It's a good role for him.
Yeah, the part he was born to play.
Yeah. Hey, DA, can you put a link up for that?
For the movies?
Yeah, or for that for that one that was done in the 80s. The one that follows the account.
No. Let me.
I'd be interested in that.
I know that sometimes they have those movies on YouTube. Let me see if they've got it on. Yeah, the original one,
It's on YouTube.
made in 1984. I remember it because I was actually working at the movie theater the time that one came out. And I was the projectionist for the movie theater. The link to that one to buy or rent on YouTube is right there. And Doc, I'll put it in the private chat too.
Oh, right on. Thanks, man.
So
Appreciate
you can
it,
just
brother.
click on it. It's available on YouTube. And generally, anytime my wife and I have gotten a movie on YouTube, it's been pretty good quality. So I won't complain about the YouTube ones. But when we start talking about weird things that happen with ships and movies like that in the Philadelphia Experiment movie, it always leads me to another movie that I'm sure you guys have at least heard about. And I know this one is not based on any conspiracy theory, any story, that it was just, fictionalized account, but it was just such a fantastic movie. And that was The Final Countdown. Did you guys ever see that, where the Nimitz went back in time to World War II?
I did not.
Fantastic movie. You ever want to see what happened if a Zero went up against an F-14 Tomcat?
Oh Lord.
Had Kirk Douglas in it. Some pretty big name actors. Martin Sheen was in it. There's some pretty big name actors in that movie, the actors of the day. But if you haven't seen Final Countdown, it's a great movie, and it's pure sci-fi. It's this weird electromagnetic storm at sea, and the Nimitz tries to outrun it, and it tries to change course, and the storm keeps staying right in line with them, and they wind up getting pulled into the storm. And when they emerge, they are off of Hawaii just days before the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Huh.
And it's a really cool story. Really, really kind of make you think. Kind of one of those paradox movies, but very good.
Interesting. Yeah. Northwest Cryptid said he has it on his movie shelf.
I've probably seen that movie a dozen times over the years, and it's one of those that just gets better every time I watch it. Granted, is it realistic? No. I mean, what are the odds of a nuclear carrier going back in time? but it's a really well thought out plot. And I'll leave it at that. If you guys haven't seen the final countdown, you should definitely check that out. And coincidentally, it is also on YouTube to be purchased or rented. The cool thing about purchasing movies on YouTube is if you buy it, you can watch it for free anytime you want. You don't get a download or a physical copy of any sort, but I don't think YouTube's going anywhere. So anytime you wanted to watch it, it's going to be in your YouTube library. And I just posted the link to that one in the main, and I'll pop it into the private chat for you two, Doc and Steve. But it's a great film if you haven't had a chance to watch it. Really cool. Plus, if you know, one of my favorite jets. I used to build model kits when I was a kid. And one of my favorite kits ever was the F-14 Tomcat. I just love that aircraft, and I was pretty sad when those were taken completely out of commission. But if you get a really good views of the F-14 Tomcat in action, just a really cool movie.
Oh, they were quite the aircraft in their day.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, Top Gun. Enough said.
There you go.
Well, Top Gun is one of those. Was that volleyball scene really necessary? But it's there nonetheless. Yeah. It's kind of like in the movie The Lost Boys. Somewhere, some point, the director or the art director or somebody says, "You know what this movie needs? A guy in spandex with no shirt on playing a saxophone. That's what this movie needs."
Oh man!
Granted, that movie had a great soundtrack, but I remember when I was watching, like, why the hell is this guy even on the show?
And why the hell does he have baby oil smeared all over him too? I don't know.
Granted, he was a pretty good sized dude, but why?
Right. Naoma just said it. I'm gonna show the comment. Half naked men on a beach playing volleyball. Enough said. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I think that was for a totally different demographic to attract them to the movie.
It was fan service. They knew the guys came for the planes and the women came for the volleyball scene.
Yeah, exactly. And Tom Cruise, yes, and Tom Cruise.
John Doe's got an interesting point when we were mentioning the F-14 Tomcat against a Zero. He said, but I mean, if you were to put a Sopwith Camel against a Spitfire, you'd have similar results.
Yeah.
Or the Red Baron up against a P-51 Mustang.
Yeah.
Oof. That's my favorite plane.
Oh, the P-51. You got to fly one, didn't you?
I did. I got 1.31 hours of stick time in it.
I am so jealous.
TF-51. It was tail number was 1944 build, and I flew it on June 5th. So I flew it like the day before D-Day. So
That's
it was
cool.
It was an amazing experience. Got to fly it, got to land it. So it was a cool experience.
So when the crap hits the fan and we grab a prop powered plane, you're the pilot.
Heck yeah, man! I'm down. I'm down like a fat kid.
It's a little dangerous when our pilot is also our medic.
Hey, as long as we got those 650s armed up, we're good to go. There
we go. Why do they call it the Ma Deuce? Because nobody argues with Ma.
That is correct.
It's funny when you look at the P-51. Clearly that was a plane that was engineered around its engine.
Oh my God!
Just like you look at the A-10s, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to build this big ass gun. Now let's find a plane to go around it.
When I was writing Codename Wild Hunt Operation Blood Eagle, and there's a scene in there where Clark flies a P-51, and the reason that got in there is when I was researching the possibility of Nazis surviving and making their way to Argentina. When I was digging into all of that and doing the research on it, just one of the videos that randomly popped up was a P-51 flying for an air show. And I watched the video and I was like, oh, hell, that's got to be in the book.
Man, let me tell you, that's an amazing aircraft. Amazing aircraft.
I knew that book had to have a P-51 dogfight in it. Just had to happen.
It was something else. Yeah, that plane. I remember when we first went up, and we were down over Avon down in Florida, and you could hear the F-16 traffic up above. We were flying at like 10 grand, and he said, "All right, first thing we're gonna do is a stall." And I was like, "Say again?" I don't know if I really want to stall this plane out, but yeah, it was interesting. Just trust the plane, man. Trust the plane. It was a good time.
Anthony's with us on the crew. He says he's our heavy gun and light gun man. I had a buddy that was taking his pilot's training, and I got to sit in the control tower and listen while he was up flying with his instructor. And he was pretty far into his pilot training course, and this was just in a single engine Cessna. And at one point, I can hear the engine noise. I was listening, and up there having a good time because it was a private airstrip, and talking to the ATAC guy, and just having a good old time listening to them up there, being clowns while they're flying around. And all of a sudden, I hear the engine conk out, and the what had happened was the instructor had reached over and shut the engine off, and I hear him go, "Don, your engine died. What are you going to do now?" And without missing a beat, he goes, "Reach over, slap the shit out of you, and turn it back on."
Oh man, absolutely. I'm gonna show you a picture here. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
That was the plane right there. Crazy
heck
horse.
yeah, man.
That was a good time. Yeah, Sal had a point too. He's talking about how Yeager said that a dive P-51 hit the speed of sound, and some of them broke up. Yeah, some of them just plain out augured in. I mean, the P-51 had that laminar airflow over the wings, but they were not designed to go that fast, especially in a dive. And when you had these guys going in a dive like that, they couldn't pull up because stabilizers, flaps, everything didn't work when it was past their dive speed. And so you had guys who were ripping the wings off or just augering those suckers right in.
That's what my dad did during World War II. He didn't talk about what he did very often. He was in the Army Air Corps, and because of he was a hand-to-hand combat instructor. He was chosen to be part of the infancy program for the Army Air Corps, which became the PJs. He was sent into occupied France to bring out downed pilots. He spent most of the war in occupied France bringing out pilots.
So he was a CSAR guy, combat search and rescue.
Mm-hmm.
That's freaking awesome, man.
That's what he did. He said 90% of the time they just brought back dog tags because what they found was so burned up they couldn't bring it out. But he said once in a while they'd find one, hiding in a barn somewhere in France, and they'd bring him home.
Yeah, that was an amazing aircraft. That's for sure. Yeah, Northwoods Cryptid said there's nothing like the sound of an old Rolls Royce Merlin. You ain't lying, man. That thing's like, it's literally like strapping into a race car with wings.
Yeah, I love those old World War II aircraft. Just a big fan. And I know we've kind of gotten away from the Philadelphia experiment, but we kind of covered that topic. Topic, there's the word.
Yep.
Blues and G Music says, I've worked on the A4A, the A4B, A4C, F14A, F4D, RF4C, F5E, OV1D, KC135, EC135, DC8, 910, A6, C5B, H58, UH1H, and 737s. Damn, you've had an interesting career.
Wow.
Bingo.
Wow. Yeah. I flew a patient on a KC135. We kind of commandeered it and get an urgent patient out one time. That was kind of interesting. Flying a patient on an opportune aircraft. So that was interesting. That was a good time.
My brother, he's retired cop, but he was in the Air Force during Vietnam, and he was a crew chief on a C5.
The per diem maker. They used to call it the per diem maker. Every time that thing would land, it would break. Yeah, we broke for 5 days in Rota, Spain. So we were on the coast of Spain for 5 days while they were waiting for parts for that thing. So that was horrible. Hated that time.
We said the most terrifying thing that ever happened to him is they were they had just left the air base and were heading out over the ocean when the nose cone fell off.
Oh,
He said that was a butt puckering moment.
that's interesting.
You know,
He said probably more so for the pilot than him, but
you know, you forget sometimes how brave, if not just crazy, some of these air crews were, in the military. My great uncle was a flight engineer on a B-29, and they flew missions back and forth, across the English Channel. And one particular time, they just got the hell shot out of them, and they had managed to drop their bombs, but thanks to all the damage they took, the hydraulics cut out and they couldn't close the bomb bay doors. Well, in a brilliant bit of engineering, the bomb bay doors, when open, covered the landing gear. So they couldn't get the landing gear down either. And so they, basically were just going to plan to ditch it in the channel. And the crew took a vote. They just, basically said, well, either we all survive or we all die. And my great uncle had the bombardier holding by his belt out of the bomb bay doors while he wrenched the doors shut at like 50 feet off the channel. And I'm like, crazy sons of bitches. And they said there was 1,400 holes in the plane when it landed. And and he told a story that he was on another mission where he was talking to one of the navigators, and all of a sudden the navigator's head was gone. Some anti-aircraft round hit the ship and just took his head right off in front of him. And I was like, okay, any of those events would get me to pretty much leave the Air Corps at that point and go find something simpler and safer to do.
Yeah, you ain't lying, man. I had I've got a good buddy of mine that's retired. He's a retired mini little bird pilot, the AH-6.
Mm-hmm.
Also known as the egg of death. And they were to battle a Haditha Dam in Iraq, and they went Winchester on their miniguns. Winchester means they went dry, ran out of ammo, and Greg had his co-pilot fly. Greg pulled his M4 out and was shooting the M4. They got down to like 50 feet off the deck, and he's sitting there shooting his M4. Ran out of ammo for that. Then they got hit by an RPG, crash landed, and all he had was his sidearm at that point. And he's sitting there engaging enemy until the PJs can come in, Seesaw mission come in and pull their butts out. So that dude has. I said I don't understand. I said I don't understand why I don't hear any clanging when you walk, because you got some big ass brass balls, brother. That's for sure. You got to have a wheelbarrow hauling those things around for sure.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was impressive. He had, I think, gun cam footage of that, but he had, I think, over 5,000 confirmed kills by the time he retired. Yeah.
My brother Danny was a door gunner on a Huey in Vietnam, and he told me one time, he said the pilot one day he was looking up in the cockpit, and the pilot had books stuffed underneath his seat. And he goes, what the hell is that? He goes, it's a pair of Los Angeles phone books. He's like, well, why do you have those in there? He goes, because odds are really good. A bullet coming after this aircraft is going to be coming from underneath, and I don't want to take one up the ass.
Yeah, that's one thing they had us do. We had early on, before we had plate carriers on the 130s when we were flying aerovac missions, they would have us wear our flak vest and our helmets. But also we had flak vests that we would sit on the Evans seats in case anti-aircraft fire came up and punched through the skin of the aircraft. So that was a reason. They're like, make sure you're sitting on that stuff so it doesn't blow your balls off. I said, well, if it killed me, at least I'd be intact. Maybe I don't know. So yeah, that's a interesting story.
Yeah, it's funny to see photographs of like the gun turrets on like a B-17 or one of these things. You see the guys wedged in there, and then you look at the photograph. They're basically leading with the machine gun and their ball sack.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, them and those waist gunners on those planes, man. Those are some brave dudes for sure. Gentlemen, I would love to sit here and talk all night. It is 10:38 my time, 10:39. I've got to get up at 6:30 and get to the class and finish up my day 2 of my trauma class tomorrow. And I have enjoyed it immensely, as always. Everybody in chat, thank y'all for coming in. Thank y'all for jumping in. Tell everybody to like and subscribe on this show. We're 16 away, and on that 2,000 giveaway, there's going to be some really good stuff. So y'all have a great night, and I'll see you soon.
All right, Doc.
All right, Doc.
Be safe, brother.
All right, brother. Love you, man. Have a good night.
Love you too, brother. Be safe.
All right, out here.
Yeah, when we hit the 2,000, I'm going to be giving away an autographed book. Doc has said he's going to be giving away a med kit. I will also have some audio codes and Amazon codes to give away, and we may have even some other special stuff, because I was talking with Craig Burhart, the owner of Scallywag Tactical, today, and he's going to be sending me a care package of stuff. Hopefully it will get here in time for us to hit the 2,000, but we are 16 away, which means we could make it at any time.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Got some fun toys too.
We are damn close. Let me see if it's gone up any. I will log back in and check. We're still 16 away. Oh well, it was worth a shot. So if you haven't liked and subscribed, hit that like and subscribe button and help us get to 2,000. Make sure you're hitting that little alarm bell icon so you get notified anytime we go live, and share the videos with people you think might enjoy the content. We'll definitely still be talking about. We're going to be talking about cryptids. We do that a lot. We're going to have some other authors on the show. We'll be talking paranormal, Bigfoot, aliens, everything in between. And if you're enjoying the content, please consider joining the channel, and your support helps us continue to grow the channel and to be able to provide more content. Northern Woods Krypton says 2,000 will happen soon. I totally agree. It's going to happen. We are like skin of our teeth close. Blues and G Music says all Hueys and Rangers had were laminated steel plates for seats. I refuse to fly in any helicopter. Not a real aircraft, in my opinion.
Well, the problem with a helicopter is they've got the glide ratio of a crowbar.
Yeah.
They will
glide all the way to the crash site. Well, some helicopters are designed to auto rotate, which means if the engine conks out, they can kind of glide and get to the ground, but they're going to the ground. It may not be a comfortable landing, but they're going to the ground. Ellen Harrington says paranormal ? Yes, we have done paranormal shows, and we will be doing more. Louis Noriga says, I got to plan an OV-10 Bronco. My friend is a major in the Civil Air Patrol, and they have once a month. The Air Force comes in to show up airplanes. He knew I liked the obedience. He asked me if I would go up there, and I got to get the chance to fly in one. That's awesome, dude.
That's neat.
I've never had the opportunity to go up in a civilian aircraft.
The little Cessnas, are a lot of fun to play around with. I had a friend who was a pilot. He let me go up with him. Just the premise was we were going up to watch fireworks from the air around the 4th of July, and we just did a lot of circling around the town, and it was really cool. It actually was the first time I was ever on a plane. It made us a commercial air flight a lot less frightening.
Werewolf 5674 says auto rotation is a pilot skill. Fortunately, I've never had to land that way, so I count my blessings. Susan Parsons says started Lakeview Man 3 last night. Hope to finish it tonight. Great read. I'm glad you like it. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. It did allow me the opportunity to bring in characters that had previously not made it into these newer books. So look for more along those lines. I've already started Apex Predator 5, which is Apex Predator Dark Moon, and I'm pretty far. Well, I wouldn't say pretty far, but I'm well into that. I'm a full chapter down, so hopefully I will have much more on that in the coming days and weeks. I want to try to have it done before the end of February, so I'll keep my fingers crossed. Ivy Ray says, Lakeview Man Beast of Blunk Road surpassed my expectations greatly. Halfway through it, what's your next release going to be? That'll be the Apex Predator, the fifth in the Apex Predator series at Dark Moon. Lindy says, DA, they're great. Don't like small planes like a 50-seater too bumpy. I don't blame you.
Yeah, puddle jumpers.
Northwood Scripted said, when a P-51 showed up at the airport here, I asked how much it would cost to go up with them. It was a big no-go when they said $1,200. Yeah, that's something I couldn't afford either. It would be cool as hell.
Oh, yeah.
Werewolf 5674 says, feeling back at home with Lakeview 3. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It was a fun one to write. It took me longer to finish it than I really wanted to, but it was the book I was working on when we first had the car wreck, and it took me a little bit to fully recover from that, and I had some concentration issues for a while. So I, normally when I would sit down and write 3, 4, 5,000 words at a sitting, I was doing 200, 300, and I would get a headache and have to stop. So that one was much longer in the going, but I seem to be back in the groove now. So I'll keep my fingers crossed that I can keep up a quick pace on getting more books out. My plan is to do 10 releases. So I've only got 9 more to go. 10 releases in 2022.
Mm-hmm. Getting there.
Yeah. So one down. I'm 10% the way there. Chris Miller says, I haven't had a chance to start Lakeview 3 yet. Been busy. Well, let me know when you do. I'd love to hear what you think. Louis Norigas, it was only $40 back in 82 to go up in a P-51. Man, I wish it cost that now. S. Dresden says a Delta unit of werewolves would be interesting. Well, might be something along those lines coming in the near future. We'll see.
See what we can do.
Yeah, man, I might have to make that happen. Blues and G Music says, I actually got to take a catapult shot in a C1. Not much different than the Bronco. Talk about intense. Oh, I would imagine so.
Human slingshot.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything on those catapults would be rough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'll stretch your butthole a bit.
No kidding. Northwood Scripted says the last 2 weeks here have been really rough. Today I managed to do a bit of writing, though. Well, brother, if you need anything, you just let me know. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. I know you guys have had some rough times, so we'll keep you in our thoughts, man. Well, we are coming up on the 2 hour. I was kind of hoping Josh would be here tonight so he could run a giveaway, and I kind of suck at doing it, so we may not be doing a giveaway tonight. Jesse Van Ressler says, DA finally made it halfway through Apex Predator Full Moon. And seeing how, as Keith has the other 3, I'm sure we're awaiting number 5 eagerly. Awesome. Just remember, all of those series, the Apex Predator, the Lakeview Man, Nightmare Hunter, and Codename Wild Hunt, those all interconnect. So if you're reading one series and enjoy it, you'll probably want to read the others, so you'll get a lot of background information. Blue Cruise says, wow, that's almost a book release each month for 2022. That's the plan. If I can actually release more, I will. But the goal is 10 for 2022. Mark Napier says, Odin Call, Ulf Hednar. It could be something like that. We'll see. Yeah, I've got a lot of books in the coming weeks and years that I've got like the plots already set up for the next roughly 30 books, and I will be adding to that list as I have other books and projects I want to get done. Chris Miller said they had over 15 inches of snow in 2 days this week. Wow, I thought we got a lot.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised Josh hadn't joined us.
He may have his daughter tonight, so that might be the case. Jesse Van Rensler says, I think he should be nudged to start buying the other book others than wink wink. Heck yeah, awesome.
Well, I too am planning to read Lakeview 3 this weekend, so it's on tap for tomorrow. And hopefully life will settle down a little bit, and I'll be able to do a little bit more of that. I have my stack of 2 reads is getting bigger and bigger, and as we're bringing more and more authors into our little fold here, then I buy their stuff, and the list gets even bigger.
Two Thinking just brought up a good point. We had been planning to redo the timeline, and Josh and I discovered something the other day that really made it much easier. The website I use, which is WordPress, I use that for my own website. They just recently added a feature that allows you to add a timeline to your website. And Josh has been doing the bulk of the work because he's the tech guy. But I just posted the link. You can click on that and it will take you right to the section of the website that now shows the timeline of what order the books are in. It's still being populated, but for all the most recent books, it'll give you a good idea of what's going on. Werewolf 5674 says, question, DA, do you sketch out the whole story, then start writing the book? Yes and no. Whenever I create start a book, I have an outline of beginning, middle, and end of where I want the book to go. And then when I start involving the characters, I have come to the conclusion that they conspire against me and do their absolute best to try to make sure I don't reach those goals. Especially when it comes to characters like Margolin, who will do and say shit even I don't expect. So sometimes my characters surprise me when the interactions and because I have a very good idea in my head exactly how the personalities of these characters are. I do a bio for all my main characters, and I do like a 1 to 2 page bio. I can tell you their date of birth. I can tell you their favorite food, where they went to high school, that kind of stuff. I have a really good, clear bio of main characters. So when I get characters that clear in my head, I find that instead of making them do or say something I want them to further the plot along, I start the plot, let the characters react to it. And I just predict how the character would react, or things they would do or say. And even sometimes I'm surprised by some of the crap that comes out of their mouths, because sometimes it's not anything I had planned at all. And sometimes the characters drive the story in directions I didn't expect. So yeah, I do have a beginning, middle, and end plot outline of where I want the story to go. And I usually get to at least a close approximation of where I wanted the story to end. But the character development along the way really does shape the story. And by the time I get to the end of the book, it might be completely different than what I had envisioned when I started it. I hope that answers your question. I know it's a little weird, but it's just an organic process, because I know these characters so well, and I know how they'll react. And in a lot of cases, they react in very different ways than I would ever react. They do and say things that I don't expect, and I enjoy the surprises that happens with some of the characters, because you never know what's gonna happen sometimes. Estrezen says, if done properly, your books could be a hit as a live action series or film universe. In my opinion, that time may come, and if it does, do not sell your rights at all, brother. I would not go easily on that. I would want to remain with some creative control, because I wouldn't want them to basically just ruin the stories. I would want to try to keep any project, be that movie or television, as close to the way it's written as humanly possible. I would want to be involved in the screenwriting process. Richie Evans wants to know, says, are you going to do more Steve Lilly stories? Yeah, I actually have one planned now. It's probably going to be a fairly lengthy short story, probably about as long as the first Lilly, probably the 15 to 20,000 word range, because I find that I like to tell bigger stories than just that can be told in 3 to 5,000 words. So I'm a novelist. I'm not a short story writer. So even my short stories tend to have some weight to them. John Doe says, stories best flow naturally. I agree. And he says, which is one of the reasons I'm interested in what may be completely fabricated stories. Awesome. Thank you. Werewolf 5674 says you should do bio cards on all the peeps. Well, I've got basically that in my notebook where I keep my main characters. I mean, I could, I know their date of birth. I know pretty much all the core information about the main characters. I haven't done it on all of the characters because some of the characters are just background characters, or in some cases have been killed. I am kind of Dr. Death when it comes to characters. I kill a lot of them off, and Lakeview 3 is no different. But yeah, I know a lot of the main characters that I use. Yeah, I've got bios on that. Maybe I ought to consider doing like a weekly bio feature on my blog. Doing a bio on each of the characters. That might be fun. John Doe says, watching the tales of humans evolve and flow is fascinating. I agree. Sal Passo says, I can see your books as a series or something like that, like the Sci-Fi Channel or Netflix. That would be fantastic. I would love to see that.
That would be awesome.
I would want to be involved in the process. So hopefully, if anybody out there from Netflix or HBO or any of those watching, I'm definitely open to that. John does this, especially when those telling them don't have all the answers. I don't always know where the book is going to go. And oops, we had a new one. Wesley Clark, West from Connecticut, new listener. Great show, guys. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Ivy Ray says she hates it when I kill them off. Well, unfortunately, when you're dealing with dangerous cryptids and high end action, it tends to eat up characters. I mean, it would be unrealistic for there not to be any characters killed off. That would just be plot armor at best. And the fact that I've killed off some main characters along the way too should indicate that nobody's completely safe. There are some characters that I write about more than others, that I tend to focus on more than others, but that doesn't mean they're safe. I'm not above killing off a main character.
Well, and the thing to consider in your universe too, since it kind of touches at the supernatural, sometimes the characters come back. It's
very true. Blues and G Music says, smart DA in music, never give up your publishing. That's the real money. Exactly. Richie Evans says, DA, when is the Lord of the Rings story you're writing? When does that coming out? Well, I'm about 30,000 words into it, although I think that one's going to probably end up being closer to 100,000 than the other books. And I'm working on that as kind of a side project. So I don't really have a target date on when it'll be released, but it is something that I am actively working on. But right now, Apex Predator Dark Moon is the one I'm primarily working on. But one day a week, I work on my sci-fi side project and my fantasy side project. So those are both coming along as well. Looking to see what I'm missing here. I think I'm fairly caught up. Northwoods Cryptid says, if Spock can come back from the dead, then any character can in a story. Yeah, you just got to find the right way to do it so it doesn't come off as just cheesy. I mean, we used to joke about how Marvel Comics would kill off a character, then 6 issues later they came back. We used to refer to it as being Marvel dead. If Greg's in the audience, still in the audience, Lexington. My old friend of mine, we've known him for years. We used to refer to it as Jean Grey syndrome, how a character would be killed and then brought back almost immediately. I think Jean Grey proved there's a revolving door on death in the Marvel universe.
It's understandable.
Well, folks, since Josh wasn't here tonight, he wasn't even in chat. I don't know that I'm going to do a giveaway because I kind of suck at running the Nightbot. I mean, I could probably muddle my way through it. It's not super difficult, but I suck at technology. Ask Josh. I'm terrible at stuff like that. So we're probably going to go ahead and wrap things up tonight. coming up on the 2-hour mark. I know Steve has been pushing the envelope, working overtime, and I'd like to get some more writing in. And it was a fun show. We got a lot of the information out there on the Philadelphia experiment. And again, you guys, you can make up your own mind on whether you believe it was a hoax or if you think it was real. Again, there's evidence for and against it, and I do believe that the truth falls somewhere in between. But I think we know for a fact something along those lines happened. We just don't know to what extent. And giving the military and the U.S. government's propensity for covering stuff up and discrediting people that speak out against them, I think it's highly likely that something bad did happen and they just don't want it out there. So you may never know.
Oh, well, nothing else. Maybe we've piqued someone's interest to look it up, investigate, and make their own decision.
I saw the name Clark and thought he was talking about one of my characters, so I was checking that. Well, folks, again, thank you guys for joining us. I know I had a good time. Doc probably would have stuck around longer if he wasn't in Lubbock, Texas, getting ready to do a class early in the morning. And that was kind of unexpected. So, hope you guys will join us Wednesday night. I haven't got the show posted yet because I'm kind of waiting to hear from somebody before I decide what the topic is going to be on Wednesday nights. But watch today or tomorrow, later tonight or tomorrow sometime for me to post the link for the show. So there will still definitely be a show on Wednesday. I'm going to review the comments earlier tonight and make a decision on whether or not we want to change the time of the show to an hour earlier or not. And we'll look into that. So, but either way, we'll definitely be having a show on Wednesday and the following Saturday. So I want to thank you guys for joining us, and we really appreciate it. And for those of you that have checked out Lakeview 3, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you haven't had a chance to read my books, you can find them all at daroberts.net. I do a lot of cryptid fiction. I do sci-fi, fantasy. I also have a zombie series, which most, if not all, of the books tie in together one way or the other. So if you read one series, you might find some of the same characters in the other series as well. So I hope you guys will have checked those out. And I think something that makes my cryptid horror a little more unique is that I've been researching cryptids since I was a kid back in the mid 70s. I've been talking to people, getting accounts, going out in the woods, camping, fishing, going out where the more remote places are, looking into things like this. And Steve and I have gone out and filmed a few times, and we plan on doing more. And that's going to be a hoot and a half. We always love that. But I've taken these accounts that I've collected over the years to create the behaviors of the creatures in the books. So I have used real world experiences and real world accounts of cryptids and cryptid behavior to make the encounters in the books as realistic as I can. So I think that's kind of a unique approach, and I hope you guys will check it out, and I'd love to hear what you think. You can find all those, the Lakeview Man series, the Codename Wild Hunt series, the Nightmare Hunter series, the Lakeview Man series, the Infinite Black series, which is also called the Lost Legion, and the Ragnarok Rising series, which is my zombie series. So I hope you guys will check those out, and more and more of those are going to be coming out on audio in the near future. We're working on getting those out as quickly as we can, although the audio is a fairly slow process. So hopefully we'll have a bunch more audios out in the very near future. And again, thank you guys so much for joining us. We've had a ball. I always enjoy talking about these subjects. The Philadelphia experiment is one I've always enjoyed, and I thought the movie was pretty good. If you get a chance to watch the movie, The Philadelphia Experiment, the first one was good. The second one was okay. It wasn't as good in my opinion. And also check out the final countdown. That was a really good movie too. So hope you guys will join us on Wednesday night. I appreciate you guys. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. Writing and stories are journeys we take together, and I appreciate every one of you. And thank you so much for taking these journeys with us. So hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and we will see you guys on Wednesday night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Hey, everybody. This is Terry Pocket Dot Davis.
Wrong one.
Thank you for joining us tonight on Dax Machina. If you ever have an encounter of your own that you wish to discuss, contact us at daroberts@daroberts.net. You can remain completely anonymous if you wish. Pull your covers up tight and keep a nightlight burning bright. Oh, and did you forget to lock your doors?